everyone, and welcome back to the Journey of Grace podcast. It has been a while since we've been together. My summer has been busy, and so I ended up with a little bit of a summer hiatus. We'll just call it that. It wasn't planned, I'll be honest, but it happened. But we're back, and I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have today. And I also wanted to let everybody know that I do have our next couple Jesus Behind Bars episodes set up as well, so we'll be bringing that back. But today, we are talking about a very, we could say, controversial topic to some. Hopefully it's going to be really informational. That's what I'm hoping today. Gen Z, the church, and leadership. And more specifically, how important healthy, committed, godly leadership is. Absolutely to Gen Z, honestly to all of us. But we're just going to kind of focus on that because I feel like Gen Z, millennials, we hear those a lot. And we just want to kind of rip it apart a little bit. And there seems to be an idea that younger generations don't care about church. They're walking away from faith. They don't want structure. They don't want authority. And I personally don't believe that's true across the board, which brings us to our guest today. And we're going to see where she stands because she is officially a Gen Z herself. So everyone, if you would join me in welcoming Miss Emalie Lucas with us today.
I'm the late Gen Z, okay? I'm not the new, almost like not too far after Gen Z was Gen Z.
She's trying to be like specific. Girl, it's Gen Z. It's okay.
So you make me sound older.
No. So yeah, well, you have never been on my podcast. I have been on Emily's podcast a couple times, the Unveiled podcast, and we'll put a link to that in our description. So Emalie, give us a couple minutes before we jump in and just a little bit about who you are.
Well, as you said, my name's Emalie Lucas. I am a mom. I'm a wife. And I love the Lord, and I'm just passionate about Him and what He's placed in my heart. And this topic, once you told me this, I was like, this is a good one. And it is controversial, I feel like, in the world's standards. I feel like it's definitely what the world needs to hear, especially as a Christian community or Christians in general. So, yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much. And yes, I do have my own podcast called The Unveiled Podcast. You can get it on most of every streaming platform. So let's dive in. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. We'll start, and as always, we sometimes rabbit trail, but it's okay because it's, we shouldn't call it rabbit trail. We let the Lord lead, and where He goes, we follow. So we might not get through all the questions, but jumping in, here we go. So Emalie, you specifically, and that's what this whole thing is. This is about you and how you see these things and where you stand. When you hear people talk about Gen Z today, in general, what do you actually think they are getting right? And what do you think they are entirely misunderstanding? And we don't have to dive into those yet, just talking about them in general.
What I think Gen Z is misunderstanding identity. I think that's the biggest thing. When you look at Gen Z, you see a lot of confusion, but you also see people who want to be loved and accepted. What was the first part of that question?
Well, what do you think that, when also, and that's what they're doing, when us who aren't Gen Z, when we see that, when we see the identity, what are we misunderstanding about that? But also, what do you think, what my generation or others, what are we getting right when we look at them and they're like that?
So I do think what you're getting right is whenever you see them and you see a broken generation. Because out of all the other generations, I think Gen Z is most broken. But at the same time, I think other generations just think they're broken because they're rebellious.
Oh, wow.
And yes, that is the case. But at the same time, they're broken because of trauma. If you look at just coming from experience and the people who I've talked to, my husband and I are over young adults at church. And so most of them are either late millennials or Gen Z. Ages 19 to 29. So, you're right there within that group. Yeah. You see a lot of trauma within the home. You see a lot of hurt, a lot of identity confusion. You see, just, especially the older generation, I feel like in church, not outside of church, even with how people parent their children nowadays, it's so different compared to how my mom was raised. Compared to how I was raised, compared to how, obviously we are raising our daughter and our future kids up in the biblical standards, but that looks so different than what they did
and what that age group went
you
through.
know?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of, I don't want to say older generation, because I mean, it's not really old, but generations outside of Gen Z, they don't take that into consideration. They just expect people to know what to do instantly without teaching them.
Oh, wow.
And so that's how I would answer that question is, I think people forget that not a lot of teaching has happened within Gen Z. So how are they supposed to know?
It's good.
You know, if they're not taught anything.
We're judging and we're assuming. A lot of assumptions. Oh, it's good. So let's take that now that we see how you feel it's misunderstood or gotten right. We're gonna dive into this, this is where we're gonna go today. Do you think that Gen Z is actually uninterested in church and faith, as a lot of statistics want to say? Or do you think there's something else underneath the surface? And this again is for your personal experience with the generation and you yourself.
I'm gonna say 50-50. Like whenever you first made that question, it's the first thing that came to mind. You have 50% who want the Lord and who are desperate for church. I mean, look at like Bryce Crawford, for example. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you would even know his name, even if you're not in the Christian community. Stuff he does and being a part of the Gen Z movement basically is what some people call it. You can look on social media and see Gen Z like all radical for the Lord, which is great. And then you see the other part of the Gen Z who's rebellious, who doesn't want nothing to do with the Lord, who want to walk in their ways, who think that they know everything. And so I honestly think it's a split 50-50.
Do you think it's an intentional rejection of church due to what they have seen through the other generations? Or do you think it's just like you said, the world's changing, culture's changing, and not everybody was just brought up like that?
I think it's also too how they were raised.
Yeah.
Were they raised in the biblical standards of church, and which I'm not saying if you are raised in church you're perfect. We all know that's not true. We all can fall astray. But again, too, I think it's how you were raised. You know, were you raised where you just go through the typical routine? Oh, well, we just go to church on Sunday and we just mark that off our calendar. You just go to go.
Yep.
Or do you go because you know it's life-changing? But then again, I think, too, Gen Z is just rebellious in its own way, no matter if you were raised in church or not raised in church. I mean, I know people who were raised in church and now they're absolutely crazy. And no judgment to them, just got to pray for them. But again, I think it's kind of like the prodigal son for some of the they got
to go out and get all the crazies out of their system or something, and some of them they just never.
Yeah, so I think it just depends on. It's a very large spectrum to look at, because I do think Gen Z is the most isolated and broken generation.
No, it's good. Well, because of which we don't have a lot of time to go down the statistic route, which we talked about. But when you look at your 90s babies, you know, that's the cusp of late 90s, early 2000s. Technology is just going woo, you know, and so it's been in front of Gen Z for so long. Because like you were talking about, depending on how they're raised, how many were raised with just, oh, here's a tablet now. Here's a little video game now. Here's this. And you made me see, you know, talking to you made me realize, oh, okay, yeah. What was their system in their brain? What was, you know, was church even by then? Church wasn't in the 50s and 60s, even a little bit 70s. I mean, by the 80s, it was knocking off, but it was, you just went to church. That's what you did. And definitely by Gen Z, I think that was, I don't have the proof. I can look up the numbers for the, you know, to add to the description of the podcast later, but I will guarantee by the 90s, that was not a high number, you know, of families have to go to church, like you said, maybe check a box off, something like that, but that relational aspect, I guess. Because
when I was little, when I was born, there weren't really phones around. Like there wasn't.
Right.
There might have been
right.
Like,
it was by the time it was when you guys
landlines, but not.
Yeah.
And I don't even think the first iPhone came out until, I don't remember, but I was older. I was not.
No, it wasn't
younger.
A child. Yeah, it was those. That was what I was saying. That cusp, the high school years, kind of those, you know. But I think a lot of that does play. I know I'm older. I am not Gen Z. I think I'm going to get this wrong, and I'll correct myself. I am the very beginning of the millennial. Like it's almost the cutoff. But I'm a millennial by like a year or something. But I do think what you're saying is true. I personally agree with like that 50-50 kind of concept. I know statistically it may not, but where we live, where we are, what we see.
I think we talked a little bit about this too, but I think by church, there's a lot more movements of, I don't want to say house church, but more fellowship within your own walls or outside of the church.
And hold up, because see, you're about to preface that exactly where our next question is going. See, you walked right into it, because I was going to say, so now we're talking about, are they interested or are they not? Well, let's just go with, okay, they are. Let's say there's a taste. Like, okay, let's figure out church. We don't know what it is, or maybe we had it. We want something different. What is it? What do you think? And you personally, even, what is Gen Z looking for then, even at all, when they walk into a church? Just like you were saying, maybe it's a different kind of church. What are they looking for? What's the, and I know first and foremost, we need to look for God. And those listening to the podcast, I hope you understand, that is a given. Mm-hmm. That's a given. We search for God. We ask the Lord to lead us to the correct church. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In that, I think we're allowed to pray. Hey, Lord, for my family, for this, Lord, this is what I'm looking for, God. What do you have for me? What do you think for Gen Z that is? What is it that the Lord, the Lord's kind of pulling them to when they're looking for a church?
I'm going to say 3 things. Vulnerability.
And from who?
Leaders.
Okay. Wow. It's a big one.
Discipleship.
Huge.
From leaders. And authenticity from leaders. I know that's one thing that is so important in church, is I want to go to church, which I do, but I'm just saying, like, if you guys are not in church, find a church. Obviously, yes, let the Lord lead you, but look for those 3 things. Because if the pastor wants always your prayer requests and wants to know what's going on with you, but they can't ever get behind the pulpit and say, pray for me, they don't have to go into detail.
Right.
They can just say, I'm struggling, like, pray for me, or pray for, if something, just ask, because that's vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that is such a deep connection you have as a pastor with your congregation, no matter if your church runs 10, 100, 200, 300, because we know that, like, our church is on the bigger side. And so we run anywhere from like 150 to 200 on a Sunday morning. And no matter how many people's there, a pastor will be like, my family's going through this, my wife's going through this, pray for us. And that to me is so important, because you're like, he actually genuinely cares. Like, he's not prideful to think he never needs prayer for anything.
Right.
Discipleship is a big one. Does your church have small groups? Does your church have meetings outside of a Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night service? Like I said before, Nick and I are over the young adults at our church. And so one thing that they have communicated to us so strongly is not to be preaching a sermon every time we have a young adults meeting. Yes, that is so important, but you're also in church Sunday morning.
Right.
Sometimes Sunday night, Wednesday night.
Discipleship has many methods, many different things. Yeah.
They just want the fellowship. They want the discipleship. They want to get to know you. You want to get to know them. I mean, how many times did Jesus go and sit with people and just have communion with them? Yep. Like, just ate a meal with them. And I think, again, for our generation, that's so important.
I was going to ask, do you think that's something that Gen Z, a lot of times what I see, so tough, you guys can roll with it and do this and do that, but maybe you really just need that communal time, that Gen Z wants relationship. And I think you had said the word authenticity, which brings us to closing out this section, and we're getting ready to go into another one that you had talked about. We're going to hit on leadership and how important that is for Gen Z. But to finish this section, do you think that young people can tell when someone is being genuine?
Yes.
And when they just want your age group in their church? Because, we're missing this age group. We need them. Because, Gen Z is where they're saying a lot of churches. I mean, I won't lie. We're a church plant, so we're small. So we're a whole different, we're almost in a different spectrum. But I would love more Gen Z young adults at our church. And for us, it's just harder because we don't even have a building. We don't have a place. But we go out and meet them. We at least, hey, we love you. We're here. We're not trying to check off a box.
Yeah.
Do you think that can you tell? Can they genuinely that they see you as you?
I think, and I'm not saying this to down any of the young adults in our church or any of our friends. I'm saying this again, just looking at all the groups in the church. The young adults is the hardest ministry to grow. And to me, we have a good amount. And we only have really a few that's faithful. Does that hurt my feelings? No. Does it get me upset? No. And I even told Nick this. I was like, I'd rather have a handful that's faithful than 10 15 that we don't even get to know who they are.
Yeah.
And
checking the box.
Yeah. Like
said, yeah.
I do obviously want our group to grow, and I know it's in the Lord's timing, it will. But at the same time, it is so important to get to connect with those and know those. Like for us, so what we do is if Nick and I want to go to a movie, we went to go watch a movie last month. Oh gosh, we're already in August. I already knew that, but I was like saying last month, it's crazy. We went to go watch a movie and we invited some of the young adults to go. We put it in a group chat with our young adults. We're like, hey, if anybody wants to come meet at this movie theater this time, and a few came. And I'm like, that was not on the calendar for us to meet. It was just a spontaneous, hey, if you want to come, go. We went bowling also last month. So it's just like those people, just trying to think how to word this. Our heart is for the people. And I think they see that. And I think some may be skeptical of that because they might not be used to that.
Yep.
They might not be like, you actually care about me? You don't really even like know me. Like I'm a little skeptical, which is totally normal. But just for them to know our heart and to know like, hey, you know, if we want to go see a movie, we're going to invite you guys too, you know, to come because it's so important, and take it outside of the church. Like we meet in the church, but we've been trying to get outside because it's so important, because you don't want people to think, oh, like it's on the calendar, we have to do that. Like we've switched so many dates around just so we can meet somebody's house, and that's more meaningful. And
you think in Gen Z that's kind of what they want, that connection, that personal connection. Like you're legit.
Yeah. And so we're trying to meet with them one-on-one. That's a little harder, you know, like my stance, you know, being a mom. And then you have the other couples who, I think only one or two other young adults in our group are married. I think just one. And so then you have their work and, you know, when they're on vacation. So it is a little harder to meet with everybody individually. But that's so important. Even if you just reach out to a young adult, be like, hey, praying for you today. Hope you're having a good day. Things like that is so important. Reach out to those and don't only talk to them at church, because then they're going to feel neglected and not want to come to you.
No, and you think, I think you answer the question, and that's how you believe they know that you're not being fake. They'll see right through you if it's just, hey, we're just going to have 6 o'clock every Tuesday, whatever, just come. Which there's nothing wrong with that either. Don't get me wrong. But if that's all, that's it. It's never anything else. You always know what's going to happen. It's almost like they're just there themselves to check off a box. The leaders aren't even, and I don't feel like they're investing in me.
Yeah, and that's why authenticity is so important. Be yourself inside of church and outside. Like inside and outside, because they're going to see that, whether what you post on social media, you know, how you talk. And Nick and I are open about, to some of the young adults, about how we are in our marriage. Not like obviously the bad, but like how sometimes you have disagreements in marriage. And it's so important to talk about, because they see that. They'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to tell you everything like we disagree on, but like if we had a little disagreement on something, be like, you know, and you can even tie that into things, you know. And I think you just being open about things. Yeah, they see and don't have the Instagram highlight of your life, then they're going to realize you are a real person. Yeah, you know, and you're not going to put a mask on. No, that's because people really can see you through that. And I think a lot of generations can. I know a lot of the stuff we're talking about can technically go for a lot of people. But just focusing on that Gen Z, because you are right, that young adult group it's hard. Now, like if you live, there's churches if they're near a university or near, you know, it's a little easier. But in general, it's just hard because that's that age, like you're starting families, or you're just starting to really like serious date, or there's all these things, and there's so much going on. And I think like, you know, they don't just want to come sit and hear someone talk for 30 minutes. Yeah. There's like 3 levels of Gen Z. You have like the people who are just now starting their careers. Then you have the people who, are starting families. You have the people who are just now like getting engaged. Yeah. And so, I mean, I chose the family route over school, but you have like those 3 categories. It is. And I think that's another reason why that Gen Z, we got to be careful not to drop the gap, because it's so different. The way, you know, again, a bigger church, it's a little easier to do this. You know, we couldn't do this right now, but I think it's so important. There's like young family ministry. Like, oh, we always have kids care. This is for our married couples, you know, and then there's that it's still young adult age. Hear me? It's like Gen Z, like, okay, this is for married couples. Okay, this is for our singles. And then sometimes they put them together. And I think that's great, because like you just said, it's not always a one size fits all, but authenticity, discipleship, that's key. What you said, that is across the board, which takes us into our next section here.
you talked about all those things and how you and your husband are young adult leaders. So you yourself, so now put yourself in, I know you are a leader, but put yourself as in, you've got your leaders yourself, like your pastor or what you go, and churches maybe where you've been. At your age for a Gen Z, what in the world is a good church leader? And I'm prefacing it with this, especially on socials right now, there is so much where the church leaders are falling. No one's perfect. Absolutely, we can all sin. That being said, a lot of it is because our church leaders aren't having accountability. They're not, staying where they are. And I think Gen Z sees that. But again, I'm on the outside, so I'm asking you.
Yeah.
So how do you look for, what is it you're looking for in, what is a good church leader? Like, what qualifies a church leader that makes you want to follow them? And I don't say follow like they're your, I mean, you are willing to,
like, sit
through
under
the Lord, sit under them. Yes.
I'm gonna say the three I said for the like young adults ministry of like vulnerability. I'm gonna even add transparency in there. Again, from the outside looking in on certain things, especially like social media, you see it every time a pastor falls, it's blasted all over the place, and unfortunately it happens a lot. I think you have to have a heart to be a pastor, and people can tell if you have that heart or not. There's a difference of being a teacher. There's a difference of being a pastor. If you have the heart of a teacher, you do not need to be behind the pulpit as a pastor of a church, because you don't have the qualities that a pastor would normally have. For our pastor, like I said, we do have a bigger congregation, so it's harder for him to connect with everybody on a Sunday morning. Like, hey, how,
Right.
But he is very personable. And I think that's important. Yeah,
like someone that you can actually approach. And now I'm going to go harder. I'm going to flip it. So a good leader, they got to be approachable, be honest. If they're, you can't, these pastors have to have pastoral qualities. Teachers can teach. If you're not both, don't try to be the one or the other.
Because your heart's not going to truly be in it,
that's true. I absolutely agree with you. Being a pastor does not just mean preaching. And that's a whole nother podcast we could do for a whole nother day. Absolutely. So good leadership, someone following the Lord, that you Gen Z, we've repeated it in the past 20 minutes already, and it's the truth. Authenticity, you can see that they're real. So here's my question on leadership. What happens when you see a leader, which happens to a lot of people, that it's not that accountability. They don't have the good leadership. It's a church that it's more dictatorship. It's, Gen Z is realizing, wait, something doesn't look right, because you said Gen Z can see through. Well, what happens?
If I were to walk into a church right now and I see the control, or control hiding behind the mask of
the name of God, like, hey, this is all.
Yeah, like if I see a pastor using control but hiding it, there's one specific name I'm trying to think of and I cannot think of it. Under the part of, I'm the head of this church, you need to listen to me only, nobody else. I'm going to see right through that, and I'm going to call it out. Not to be rude, but in a mindset of, I don't think you can pastor a church biblically while having control. Yes, as a pastor, if you see somebody in your congregation or leadership in there sleeping around, whatever, then you need to go to them and be like, listen, biblically, you cannot be a leader of a church. Biblically, this is not okay. You're sinning. That's different. A pastor should not make you want to walk on eggshells when you go into church, because the house of the Lord is a place of freedom and peace, not of fear. I think Gen Z sees a lot of that in churches, of the pastor, like, I'm the head of this church, like, you can only, using his pastor title as a place of control is a very scary place to be for that pastor, because again, it's not biblical.
Yeah, no. And that's all. And I know, again, all generations see that, but I'm, young adults, I'm curious. I believe in what you're saying. I don't think churches are going to get away with it as much when these generations, which I forget what the one after Gen Z is, but all these coming up,
alpha.
Yeah, so I think something like that. I believe that as we've been saying, the authenticity, the transparency, they're going to see it and they're going to call it out. And again, we're not saying to go rogue on anything. There's a scripture, Matthew is it 18? I'm not sure. Matthew tells us how to approach someone, you know, and this, you know, Gen Z trying to find this middle, and I'm not trying to say there's a perfect church, but I know they want accepted. They want like what you're saying. And a lot of these dictating leaderships in churches, they make you feel that way at first because I don't know how. It's just, everything.
The manipulation of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, I've been around a minute, so I'm like, but a lot of your younger, they're not going to see it at first because that's, what did we talk about when you started? The acceptance, see who I am. And I think that's why Gen Z and everybody so cautious and careful when you're really looking for that church for your young family or yourself, to know that the leadership needs to be focusing on God first, not what he or she can do or how many young adults they can get in there, how many Gen Zers they can get.
I think it'll be easier to name red flags than green flags, because if you are covering up control with your pastor title, you're going to see that as a green flag, because you'll be like, oh, you're just in it. You're just a good pastor.
Yeah.
Clicks are a big red flag.
Absolutely.
As a pastor of a church and as a pastor's wife, you need people. You don't need to do it by yourself.
Nope.
If you're pushing everybody away, he's trying to help you. Again, if somebody new comes in and they just got saved, obviously, if they try to, you're just gonna be like, okay, you know, you want seasoned people. You want somebody who's been a pastor longer than you have.
Yeah. People
who have been in ministry longer than you have. People who've been married longer than you have. To pour into you, especially as a pastor of a church. And I know you and your husband, you're a pastor of the church. So, I mean, you know, like how that is, like you need, you know, but then there's a difference of that and cliques of, I can only hang out with a certain person. And again, it's not wrong to be friends with, you know, your pastor and his wife, but I just think that's a big red flag. Yeah. Especially making it known. I know our pastor's wife, when they came over to our house, for dinner a few months ago, we were talking and she's like, you know, I hang out with people outside of church, you know, who are in the congregation to get to know people, but I don't take a picture of it and post it on Facebook. Yeah. Because if I take a picture with, let's say, Nancy, I'm just making names up, and Barbara wanted to do something with me today, then like, it's over. She's going to get upset. Yeah. So hold that, you know, like, consider that too. Not everything you do needs to be posted on social media.
Right. And it's funny because Gen Z is very social media oriented. However, they also, those words become authenticity, real. Okay. They really care that I'm here. They're not trying to show the world, oh, look, we
hung
ate
out
with these people today. Or, oh, look, see, we like young adults.
And don't go bragging about it. Like with us, with young adults, you know, we have a young adults Facebook page. And if we get together, we will, like a group picture or something and post it. But if I go out one-on-one with somebody, I'm not going to post. I'll be like, oh, look, you know, because
confidentiality is important.
It is very important. And then that will make people lose trust in me as coming to me and talking to me confidential, like in a confidence way of, don't tell anybody, you know, I'm meeting with you, not like to be sneaky, but I'm going through this. I think another red flag that Gen Z, most of them, can spot through is, again, the control. Because I feel like that's a very common thing you see it in friendships, marriages. You see it with sometimes your parents and how their marriage was. They can see right through that. They can see if you study the word of God. Again, no matter how seasoned your pastor is, you always need to study the word for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because there's gonna be times certain ones are gonna try to sneak stuff in there that's not biblical. And I'll say the third, and this is probably the biggest flag, is opinions. If you're behind the pulpit preaching on your opinions, that's a red flag to me. You can say, you know, my opinion on,
like a sidestep. Like, hey,
like, you know, I'm not saying don't do this. Like, this is just my opinion. Like, I don't drink coffee after 6 o'clock. Like, not saying that that's biblical, because I don't think coffee's mentioned anywhere in the Bible, but, just their personal opinions and their viewpoints. Again, like a pastor might get behind the pulpit and say, you know, it's my conviction to do certain things. Your conviction's your conviction. Don't push your conviction on other people. And I'll say that's the biggest one, is opinions, because everybody has an opinion on something.
And Gen Z, I can see why that's big for them, because they're changing the rules a little bit. Not all bad either. Not all bad either.
And I would say
that's good.
You know, a lot of it, again, is opinion. There's a difference between opinion and facts. Like if it's in your Bible, the Bible says man should have one wife and wife should have one husband.
Right.
That's not an opinion. That's biblical.
We're not going to go down the road of polygamy. Yeah.
But at the same time, like certain things of, oh, I don't think you should be doing this, or I don't think you should be doing that. That's opinions. Pray about it. If you don't think the Lord wants you, everybody's convictions and opinions are different on certain things. So I would say that's a big one, is they don't want to hear opinion. They want to hear truth.
That's good. That's good, because they're getting opinions from all over.
Literally everywhere. You go on social media,
all
it's
of
a
us
new
are.
thing.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I think you talked about a whole lot of questions I was going to say, and which I love. I love when that happens. So to wrap that part up, what do you think, like, how does healthy accountability then in a church, because we talked about the issues you just, and how Gen Z can see right through it. A lot of us can, but them specifically. So what is a good, healthy accountability? Again, we could take so much time about the wrong way to, you don't call someone out from the pulpit because you saw them sleeping with somebody. That's not it, but also there's got to be trust. Can I trust how is that? What is healthy accountability then? And how important for this generation is trust? Can they trust these leaders? And do you want to be held accountable? Because it is scriptural. We need to be.
It is. To backtrack, one more thing just came to mind. This one's quick and it's going to ruffle some feathers. And it's only a one word. If you see gossip, run as fast as you can.
Oh, absolutely.
Anywho, that's done with now. It just came to me.
Absolutely.
But accountability. You do need to be held accountable. I forgot the first part of that question. Can you please repeat that? Mom brain.
No, you're there. No, but you're there. It's accountability. How, we're talking about, it's a generation. We don't want pastors just calling us out in front of everybody, but we need accountability, and can we trust them?
Yeah. So again, I think for me, not to go into detail, but whenever my husband and I went to a new church, it took me a minute to trust our new pastor, which valid, right?
Absolutely.
I don't think, again, you should just trust any pastor you walk into the church doors, no matter if you know him 10 years, but you've never sat under his leadership.
Absolutely, you take time.
You need to, again, see how he preaches the word and make sure he's preaching truth before you can actually full on trust exactly what he's saying, because you want to make sure he's preaching
absolutely
the word. For me, it took me a little bit to trust him. So what it took for me to fully trust him and for me to confide in him or to ask for a prayer request is one-on-one with him and his wife and Nick and I, just to kind of get to know them, like that fellowship, discipleship. And then once we had that and I saw both of their hearts outside of the church, then that made me trust them even more in the mindset of, okay, so I can go to you with stuff in confidence. But not only that, they were also like, pray for us in this situation. Again, it might not have been too deep, or it might have been something like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment coming up, or, oh, pray for my kids, or something like that. That to me is so important, because he's showing that he's not higher than thou, right?
Yep.
So again, I would think you have to have trust on both sides. Like, our pastor not put us in a position if he did not trust us. He saw our fruits. He saw our characters. He saw how we were with people. He saw how we were in church. He saw how we were outside of church before we were even entrusted with a leadership position.
Do you feel the accountability also rolls into that too?
Yes, it does.
Because once you're trusting, you got to be willing that, okay, if he sees you acting like a ding dong.
Yes. So if I post a picture, okay, so for example, I did not do this, but if Nick and I were to go out to eat, we don't drink. But a lot of restaurants, especially in the town we live in, they all have bars in it. I think the only places I don't is like fast food.
Right.
So if we take a picture behind the bar, I'm not going to post a picture of that, because some people can be like, oh my gosh, you're drinking. And then that picture is going to be shown to our pastor, and then our pastor's going to be like, listen, I know you don't drink, but why is it,
Right.
And so it's that accountability. Like, if I wear something too short, I want our pastor to be, or a pastor's wife, because I know sometimes if it's the women, the pastor's wife more be like, hey, can you maybe not wear something that short? Which, I mean, I don't think I have issues with wearing anything shorter.
But then again, that come up. No,
I have dresses that I have that I wouldn't wear at church. Not saying that they're provocative, but just saying, I also know my audience, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to walk around in a shorter dress around a bunch of men who are in rehab or something, for example.
Yeah.
But
it's
again,
just knowing that accountability that you,
and I think
you're vulnerable enough that you all want called out. It's not that Gen Z doesn't want corrected.
Yeah.
They want it in the right way.
Yes. And I know the Bible says a wise man loveth correction. And that's true. But there's a difference of correcting out of love. And like, like for example, for those who don't know, I also preach. And so before I preach, I send my pastor my notes, right? So he can go over it. Because I want to make sure what I'm preaching is going to be biblically founded on, biblically correct. And, he was like, this is great. But you don't have to fix it. It's totally whatever the Lord leads you to do. But there is a lot of information here, which is a great thing you have. But this could also be like a 2-part series. And for me, like, I'd rather have more information than not enough. Because for me, like, and he even knows this, but I like, again, more information. Because I might not preach on one of the points that I have. The Lord may lead me somewhere else. I think it's like also that point of like flexibility.
Yeah.
But also too, I was like, okay, yeah, that's an easy fix.
Yeah. And you were willing to listen to his.
Yeah.
And it's not even that was a bad correct.
No,
he's
been a pastor
wisdom,
for how long? He's been in ministry for a long time. Or two, like if Nick tells me something, not out of a controlling way, but like, hey babe, I noticed that you're spending a little too much time doing this, maybe cut that back. So I'm like, that's important because it helps you grow.
Yeah.
And so if a pastor notices you're struggling and he cares about his sheep, he's going to lead you back to the shepherd.
So you believe Gen Z, they don't hate accountability. It's about it being done. Would you say it's that it needs to be done?
It needs to be done
scripturally.
With love. Yes. And don't make it to where don't make it to where they're so afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Because
we're all going to keep making mistakes.
Like a wise man falls 7 times, but he always gets back up.
Yep.
And with our daughter, she's 1, and so she's walking all over the place. When she first started, she still falls sometimes, right? She's going to.
Yep.
I don't get upset with her. I'd be like, you should not have ran. I'm just like, oh, good job. Like you're getting up again. I'm not condoning sin. I'm not condoning you falling. But at the same time, we focus on the minor stuff so much. Yep. We lose sight on that was so minor. Like, maybe just not post that next time because that could be a downfall to somebody. Or, if you go to a secular concert, maybe don't post pictures about it because
for conviction, if that's okay for you.
Yeah.
And that is that accountability. Like, okay, who in my life is going to make sure I'm staying in the right lane with this. No, that's good. Which kind of, again, transitions us right into church leadership. Leadership in our life isn't always the person behind the pulpit. Mm-hmm. Yes, we need a great pastor in our lives. I believe that. But what about when we walk alongside people and mentorship and discipling, which we have talked about some. So how important is it? We all need it, again, but this podcast episode is to specifically talk about Gen Z and all the things coming at them. Do you think that Gen Z wants mentors? Do you think it's important for everyone to have a mentor? And what does discipling, Gen Z even look like?
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not going to say discipling is always meet me at the church at 7:00 on a Tuesday night for your discipleship. Right. Let's go get a coffee. Yeah. I know you and I have done that. Hey, let's go to Sonic. And
I was going to say, coffee is always fried food at Sonic at the worst time of night where I'm like,
and I'm not even supposed to be eating it, but sometimes I'm just like, I just really want some mozzarella sticks or something right now. Again, we live in a small town, so
we don't have a whole lot of options.
A lot of our sit-down restaurants
close at
literally close at 6, and I'm like, what?
Yep.
6
so
or 7.
Nothing. Yeah.
And so,
but we love our town. We love our small town. It's just we love it to come alive some more. Trying to be positive.
I plead the fifth on that, but
trying to be positive here.
I do like our little town, but I would not want to live here forever.
Yeah, right. No, I hear you.
I don't want to go to a big city either. I just want the happy medium. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Restaurants open past 6 now, but sorry.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Why did you move? Because this restaurant closes at 8:30 instead of 5.
Yeah. But rabbit trail. We always do that, don't we? But accountability, discipleship. Yeah.
See, we're being authentic.
Yes, we are.
This is our true selves.
And that's how our discipleship journey together kind of works.
Literally. So. I would say discipleship meeting as in woman to woman. Absolutely. Man to man. Whether if you have that discipleship with your pastor, again, every leader needs somebody who has been in it longer than them. And I do think Gen Z needs mentors. I think every generation needs a mentor.
Absolutely.
Especially if you are, I would say a mentor if you are a leader over a church or pastor of a church, a leadership position within a church. If you don't have a leadership position or pastoral position, you need good friends.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Good friendships. You know how the Bible says, be equally yoked, like with your spouse, be equally yoked with your friends.
Yeah.
Again, everybody has struggles. Everybody needs a shoulder to lean on. Yes, most importantly, you need to go to the Lord first before you go to anybody else. That's what's important. And I think a lot of people miss that, and we're all guilty of that. But we just need to strive to get better at going to the Lord first. But at the same time, I mean,
you are who you're around.
Like,
right?
literally.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Jesus. He had 12 disciples. Yeah. But at the same time, I could not express this enough. I wish, like, literally, this is so important. And it's biblically founded. And I know there's going to be people who are like, it's not biblical. It's biblical. Look at all throughout the New Testament. Especially Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Like, look within the Gospels. There is a difference of people being in your crowd and in your corner. You need friends who's going to be in your corner no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus had his 12 disciples. But I mean, at the end, if you think about it, he only had Peter, James, and John. And then you only have John when Jesus is at the cross. And so he had like his 3, and then he had 12, and then at the very end, he only had 1. Obviously, when you're married, your spouse needs to be in your corner, but find a good friend.
Yeah.
Somebody who will pray with you if you need prayer. Somebody who will go to war on your behalf in prayer. Somebody who will encourage you, who will uplift you. If you're going through a season or a slump, if you're feeling anxious or something like that, like you need somebody in your corner. I had a doctor's appointment last week, I think. And one of my good friends, she messaged me, and I'm surprised she remembered she had a doctor's appointment, because sometimes I don't even remember till the day of, or, like to the day before. And she's like, I'm praying, it went good and all this stuff. And I was like, she took 2 seconds out of her day to send me a text message. Yeah. That just touched my heart. And I know it's a text message, but I'm like, she took time out of her day to think of me, to message me. And that was just so important. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you actually care. So just little things like that. Gen Z wants it. Gen Z is hungry for
relational
relationships. Whether if it's a spouse, whether if it's a good friendship, they're hungry for something. And, I mean, they're obviously, I do think they're hungry for the Lord. But
but you're saying they're hungry for something. And some of them are going, if we're not doing what we should do, all of us, whether we're Gen Z or another, and we see someone, especially those of us that aren't, this younger generation, we need to make sure that we are doing what we can to let them know that we're there, to reach out like, hey, do you need a mentor? Hey, if I'm too old for you, let's fight. Who do you, or if you, some people want some closer to their age. I always like someone who's at least a decade or more older than me, just because of, I want them to be a little bit further. Yeah. Not because I think it's wrong. Definitely you don't want your mentor to be your best friend. Your best friend and you share that. That's great. Like you share advice.
They're like, it's a boundary.
They're already they're like your confidant, whatever. But it's always nice to even have another, a mentor that'll call you out, do that. And Gen Z, they say, well, they're weenies or they can't handle it. And I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily the case. And
sometimes the people closest to you, it's harder for them to call you out if you're doing something. If they see you doing something, than a mentor or a pastor. And that's totally valid. Yep. Trust me, if you're married, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's hard to be like, you are grumpy. You need to go right.
Yep. No, it's true. It's true. And I love that we kind of shifted off, not off, we're right where we should be. It's not just about Gen Z we're not trying to talk about they want a particular church style or a particular pastor, a particular leadership. It's just about it being godly and it being, what are they really looking for? Because, we talked a little bit before the podcast. We've got churches with hymns and liturgy, where you read these things, what's going to happen next. We've got churches with coffee bars and lights. And I'll sit here and tell you, there's nothing sinful or extravagant about either, in my opinion. Those are choices of whatever. That's not what we're talking about. It's finding a place that they can put roots down. Everybody, but especially Gen Z, something that they want to commit to. You're wanting them to join your group of family, your group of church, whatever it is, you need to give them something that they are willing, your age is willing to invest in.
I hate legalism. You're saying that, and that is a lot.
And I meant it as a choice. Like
Yeah.
people who choose to do that.
Yeah.
Not because they're
And
saying it's
not
not how it has
saying
to be.
legalism in the sense of, I just think a lot of people are grounded in those roots, so it's the only roots you understand. Me personally, and again, this is how I grew up. I grew up with modern worship. I grew up with contemporary.
Yeah.
I grew up with not really reading out of, or singing out of read back hymnals.
Yeah.
I have always had a fiery preacher. I personally like a fiery preacher. I personally like, and I know everybody's opinion's different, I personally just can't get into the worship of hymnals. Again, I didn't grow up on that, so I don't really know.
Right.
I mean, I know like the obvious ones like Amazing Grace and things like that.
Right.
And that was a thing for Nick and I. Like, we need to go to a church where we're going to grow. Our church literally has a happy medium. Like, we do have some people in our congregation that's been there since the church was founded. We have some people in our congregation who are older who grew up on hymnals. And so our church is mostly contemporary, modern, but like on the last Sunday of the month, they'll do like the choir and they'll sing like hymns and stuff like that. Like, even though to me, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know this song, but like the older generation's getting into it. And so I think that's also a beautiful thing, is because our pastor has a happy medium. He's not bending over backwards, be like, oh, well, I'm losing congregation members because...
Right, he's not focusing on a certain generation.
He's like...
Right,
and this is what the Lord led him to do. The Lord led him to not be so traditional. The Lord led him to do this. And the Lord knows a congregation. The Lord knows who's going to be interested in that church and what they need. And so that's what I like, is he is mainly modern, and we don't have, smoke and fog lights and things like that. But our church is larger, but our church is also intimate. Our pastor will get off his stage and pray over you if he feels need. Like during altar call, he'll get off the stage and pray for you. If he feels a prophetic word for you, he'll tell you, no matter if you sit in the very front row, the very back, or on the balcony, like he's going to. And that's one thing I love about the community of our church.
All ages.
All
groups,
ages.
all generations. Literally.
Not
focusing on one.
Every single generation is in our church.
Yeah.
And you see... some of the older literally, I don't even know what's before millennials, but I get so confused with it. Like baby boomer, things like that. But like literally people who are in their 80s, 90s, pouring into the young. They're not letting traditions of men get to them. They're like, well, you're not wearing a skirt, or you're not wearing your hair up in a
because Gen Z's not quite like that. Yeah,
I can't pour into you. That. And they're even like, I don't care. If you wear a dress, I don't care if you wear jeans. I don't care if you, wear a nice blouse with like dress pants. They're going to pour into you. And that's one thing that was so important to Nick and I, is because I believe the older generations build a gap to Gen Z, but Gen Z also builds a bridge to the older generations.
Right. It's got to go both ways.
It has to.
And there's so many more questions I want to do. And I knew this was going to be a lot, but this is a good place to go to our closing questions here. What do you hope then that the church, like the Big C church, like not just your personal church, can look like for your generation? So Gen Z, as it keeps going, 5 to 10 years from now, you're going to be, and you guys, it'll be like mid to late 30s, possibly almost 40 for some, depending on which end of the Gen Z you're at. What is it that you're hoping the church is doing, and the generations coming up behind, all you Alpha, all this, what can we do, which you kind of answered a little bit, to make sure that we keep bridging these gaps? Because yes, this was to focus a little bit on Gen Z, but I really want to end it with just, how do we just bridge all those gaps?
And
how do you want it to look for?
30s in 10 years.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I was like, oh my gosh.
So how do you want the church to be, and how do you want to make sure that these generational gaps, that we keep
building the bridge.
Building the bridges?
I want our church in 10 years, the church of, all churches, but especially, I guess, like looking through the eyes of Gen Z, just be authentic. And I know we've said that word a lot, but if you are a pastor and you're bending to the wind, if you're bending to the storm, I don't want to sit under your leadership. If you're a pastor who is trying to fit in with everybody and be cool to everybody, and if you know it's a sin, but yet you're going to do it to fit in with everybody, I don't want a part of that. Yeah. Because again, it's not biblical. You're not supposed to bend to the ways of this world. You're not supposed to bend for people to like you. And a lot of pastors, unfortunately, do that. I would say keep being authentic, because that is just so beautiful. I mean, Jesus was authentic. He was the same as when he was with his disciples, to when he was preaching a message, to when he dealt with sinners, to when he dealt, with people who needed a miracle. He was authentic in literally up into the cross. He was authentic to the point of literally sewing on one of the guards' ear who's literally taking him to the cross. Just be authentic. Don't change with the wind. Don't change. And I think
every generation can. So 10 years from now, where Gen Z ends up, authenticity is going to stay. And I honestly think that could be one for all of it. Just in general, living a Christian life, church leadership, discipleship, small group leader, be authentic. And leads us into the last question I'm going to ask for you. If someone listening right now is Gen Z, they're kind of that younger 20s, let's say, Christian, they're frustrated, they're questioning church, they're wondering, is there even a place for them in church? Now, again, I know it's all about lots of churches in different areas, and the Lord will lead you. We both agree with that. The Lord's going to lead. So with that person, though, that's what they're doing. They're looking, they know the Lord's going to lead them, but they're like, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do. What is one thing that you want them to hear right now?
Find a community of believers. And it's funny you say that because I actually know somebody who's going through that. They just moved into a new town, new city. And my encouragement to them was, because they have church, like, oh, I like this church, but I can't find anybody there. I don't want to go by myself because I don't know nobody.
Yeah.
Get out of your box and talk to somebody. Sit with somebody. Because if you build that relationship with just one person, it's awkward going to church by yourself if, nobody else is there going with you. That is why it's so important to get out of your box and have community with people. Again, you don't need to be their best friend, but get out of your box and talk to people.
And start looking.
Because, for real, like if you just go to one church and say, no, this isn't the one, never go back again, then
pray and walk. It's like pray and walk, pray and go.
Yeah, and the Lord will lead you. But when he leads you to a church he wants you to be in, do not just sit there on your beauty in the pew or in the chair, whatever. Get up and get to know people. I know, coming from me, I am more of the introvert side. And so you get to know me. So the first time we went to our church, I didn't get out of my pew and introduce, but our church is so welcoming and loving. People came to us. Yeah. And I would say that's the thing. If nobody in your church is coming to you, introducing themselves to you, probably not the very first time you're there, even if it's a church for 1,000.
Yeah. Somebody,
whether they're on the serving team, greeting, whatever, somebody should. And I think that's important because I feel like if that happens, they're also going to feel the love. Yeah. And so that would be my biggest thing is the community in church and see if anybody,
get up and go. I love that.
Just get up and go. Even if you go by yourself, it's going to be uncomfortable. Get up and go. I mean, how are you supposed to know if you don't ever go?
That's it. That's good.
That'd be my thing.
No, that's really good. And so I think the reason these conversations are important is we need to stop saying they don't care or generalizing them. I get annoyed when it's millennials act like this, Gen Z acts like this, baby boomers are this. And I know that there's statistics for certain things that's true, but I think when it comes to God and spirituality, let's be cautious. Yes, let's make sure as leaders that we are reaching every generation, but let's be cautious not to just single someone out. And I like what you said, we need to get outside that box too. Don't just put them in the box, say, well, this is the kind of ministry we have to have for them.
Don't hide under you being an introvert.
That's it. Yeah. Don't
hide under that label.
Get out and leaders too. Do what the Lord's telling you to do. Don't fit a mold. Don't try to stay inside of a box, but have we given that generation something to care about? And I think after talking to you, that's the question I'm going to ask myself. Our son, he's our young adult leader, which we don't have any young adults right now, but we want to be prepared, that when some come, that we would be. And I want to know, Lord, are we giving them something to care about? Healthy leadership matters. Biblical discipleship matters. Accountability matters. And what's funny, these are all in my notes, and you said every one of those. Every one of those.
And I did not see your notes. Right, I only had the questions you sent me.
No, and that's good. So does creating a church environment where people can ask hard questions, grow in their faith, be challenged by scripture, and know that the people leading them genuinely love them, is it important? And I think after this, we're going to say, yes, absolutely.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Like if you're confused, because again, I will say Gen Z is probably the most confused generation because you have voices coming in from all sides. It's okay to ask the hard questions. You should be able to ask hard questions to your pastor, and your pastor this is another big thing for me, is if your pastor can answer all those questions right off the bat without saying, I'm going to study this and get back to you, I'd be like, dude, like, I know you know your Bible, but at the same time, like
you're not taking time to really.
And it's so crazy because, you know, he'll be like, well, this is, or I asked our pastor one question and he's like, you know, like, this is what it actually means. And sometimes we interpret scripture differently than other people. And I think that's why, like, you can hear one pastor preach on the same verse and then another pastor preach on the same verse and you get something out of it each time. But yeah, I mean, ask the hard questions.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, don't hide behind the, well, you know, my old pastor did this, or, oh, my friend did this. Like, is this biblical? Is it not? Ask the questions because they're going to find it so fascinating with you asking them biblical questions, no matter how long you've been in church.
Oh, absolutely. And no matter what generation you're from. And like I'd said, I think we need to stop specifically mentioning generations. But for this, you know, Gen Z, they're not a problem for the church to solve. They're not for us to fix. They're a generation that needs Jesus just like all our generations do. And if we're serious about making disciples, then we got to be serious about leading these generations where, even though, not to contradict what I just said, I don't believe in splitting everything up, but sometimes we do need to be aware, okay, this generation, here's how they were brought up, here's what they're missing, so maybe this is what we need to offer. And that's where I think that's okay. And so, wow, it's like a lot. I feel like we could, every time we do it, I feel like we do a whole nother.
It's good.
You know,
it's good.
It's just, it's so much. And I just feel like there's so much we could unpack.
Yeah, I mean, see, Gen Z, we post everything, like our reminders on social media, but then the older generation are like, what is Facebook? Or as my grandpa says, he's like, what is that crud?
That's funny. Yeah.
You know?
No, exactly.
And so it's so true. Every generation's so different.
And we need to be, and I'm, like I said, I'm not trying to sound contradictive. I just, like you said, I don't want to put these generations in boxes where that's all we do. But we do need to be aware what is reaching, you know, the certain ones. But
yeah, it's true.
Well, thank you, Emalie, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being honest and all that stuff, which we always are. I don't want wishy-washy, you know,
Keep it authentic.
Yeah, keep it authentic. if there's any word to take away today, it is authentic. So to everyone listening, thank you for coming back to the Journey of Grace podcast after our unplanned summer break. And we've got conversations coming, including our Jesus Behind Bars, and I'm really excited for that. So don't forget to check out the Unveiled podcast. I'll make sure I have a link in there with Emalie. So until next time, keep walking in your journey of grace. And I'm Charity Lynn, and thank you, Emalie.
Thank you again for having me.